It's okay to be a doer, I think, like I said, if you love what you do, but you got to check in with yourself and make sure it's coming from a very aligned place and not a survival mechanism. And that's where a lot of people are working from, is survival.
Hey everybody, this episode is for business owners who knows new strategy isn't the real answer. You're smart, you're capable, maybe even already successful, but your body is fried. Your brain is loud and you can't seem to break out of old patterns with money, clients, and over responsibility. Renee and I are talking about what's actually running the show under the surface and how to create change that sticks. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Accidental CEO podcast. I'm your host, Nata Salvatori. I almost said my guest name as my name is that kind of week, guys. It is Thanksgiving week as we're recording. And I was going to tell you I'm Renee Bowen, but I am not. That would have been a lie, a very, very bad lie. But she is here and she is awesome. And I can't wait to have this conversation there with her. Welcome, Renee.
Hey, welcome. Hey, look, you can be me for today. That's fine. I mean, I could use all the help I could get right now.
I don't know. Between you and I don't know which one has piled up more stuff on our resume. So I don't know if it's a good exchange.
I know, right? We're both doers. So
we're both doers for here. We have a lot in common, and we're going to talk about a lot of that today during our conversation. But for anyone who just met you, don't know who you are, and share a little bit of the short version of how you went from a small town Louisiana girl to being an LA photographer, and you are also a trauma-informed coach working with visionary women like I do. So tell us a little bit about this story.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, right? Like, I mean, I think it's very relatable to a lot of us fall into this career, It's like, oh, I'm good at this, and so I'll just do this. But coming from Louisiana, very small town, like one traffic light, grew up there, went to college there, and I was in my first like big girl corporate job, hating everything about that, basically. At 25 years old, I had this literal, I think, download. I was in the office that day and I was like, you have to go to LA. Like, it was just like, you have to move to LA. I mean, I had lived in LA for a summer, like 2 years prior to do summer school at UCLA. So I had some point of reference, but like not that much. And it was just one of those moments where I felt like if I don't change something, I'm going to be stuck here. And I was in a really crappy relationship and I just was not happy with my life. And I was about to be 25, really no direction. I had this degree in psychology. I thought I was going to go back for my master's, but then I was kind of like, I don't know. So long story short, I did. I just kind of picked up and left with no job and no plan and 2 giant dogs. And I literally drove to LA and moved. And I found jobs like bartending and waiting tables, as one does, within like a day, because I had, I'm resourceful. I've been working since I was 16. So I'm like, I'll figure something out. Right. And I did. And then within 2 months, I met my husband at a bar. So I didn't intend to stay in LA. Like, this was supposed to be just like I'll go find myself in LA and then I'll figure this out. Right. But I met him and he's an actor and a writer. So then I was kind of like stuck here and things just started moving very quickly after that. Like, I decided to go to massage therapy school. And then we started having kids and we had 3 kids under the age of 2. And my oldest has autism. And so all of these things sort of compounded like major changes in my life very quickly with, again, zero planning, zero, logical anything. And I found myself in my early 30s, a mom of 3 kids with a degree in psychology, a massage therapy certification, and I was working as a massage therapist, but nothing again was lighting me up. And I could feel myself sort of slipping away. And I had always loved photography. Like, my dad was a photographer growing up. Like, he was like developing photos in the bathroom as a kid. And so I just kind of grew up around it and, whatever. He and my parents divorced. My mom divorced when I was really young, but I was still like, I always just had a knack for it. Never thought I could make it a career. And then I started taking photos of my kids, and really it was my oldest because he didn't speak until he was almost 5. And so I was always like with that 85 on his face. Like, I was just obsessed with trying to figure out what was going on in there. And so I was taking these photos of him constantly, basically just because it was fun. And then people started asking me, did you mean to do that? Like, how do you know how to do this? And it was film, like this was before digital. And I started like charging for it, quickly realized I did not like taking photos of other people's children, just my own. So, I just tried a little bit of everything. Tried some wedding, tried some events, tried this. And then in 2007, I was like, I found senior photography. Like that was my thing. I love, 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 love working with teenagers. People think I'm crazy, but like I absolutely love it. When I was going to be a therapist, that's where I was going to go into. So it kind of like came back to that. I started a business of senior photography, more luxury based, high end product sales, things like that. And after a few years of that, people started asking me, like, well, how did you do this? How are you making money at this? And that's how my coaching business started. People started coming to me to, get coaching on business. Quickly realized that's not what they really needed the help with. Like, yeah, they needed some strategy, but it was all up here. So I went back and got some certifications in NLP and some life coaching and things like that because I really wanted people to get results quick and get them out of their own head, get them out of their own way. And then that really came full circle with my psychology stuff. So that's sort of what I do now is I still run both of these businesses and I love both of them. And I also have like courses and things like that in a podcast. But yeah, I mean, it's really that nervous system, unconscious work that I love as far as like the coaching piece. Like, yeah, I love people coming to me for strategy and I could do that all day. Like I love marketing, it's just a part of my brain. Like I love figuring stuff out, especially when it's not for my business, like especially when it's for someone else's business. But I also just really, really love watching people make huge shifts in their life. It's really, really cool.
I mean, the strategy is the easy part. That's the stuff that's out there and it's easy to find and it's easy to implement. But what we find a lot of times when we're working with our clients is there's always something in the way because that information is easy to get, like we just said. So why is it not being implemented? And a lot of times is the stuff underneath it, right? Really diving into that mindset and the psychology of things and really understanding what is blocking you from taking the next step in your business. So I love that you addressed that too. So you mentioned all the things that you do. I love that. So you lived, lots of lives. So psychology, the massage therapy, the photography, the coaching for people out there who feel like too all over the place, which we probably have heard from other people. What would you say to them about being multi-passionate? Because I have my own words about that. So I want to hear from you because we're both on the same line.
Yeah, I mean, like, why box yourself in, right? I mean, I feel like those of us, and I have seen a lot more of us in the last few years, right? Like, for a long time, I felt like, okay, well, you have to niche down and you have to be like about this one thing, and you can only talk about that one thing on this one account. And then you have to have a different account if you want to do something different. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I know that that's probably a great strategy as far as like growth and all of that. But for me, I just feel like it's all a part of this one this one crazy brain of mine. For me, it makes sense, right? Yeah, you have to make it make sense for your audience. You don't want to get like lost in the sauce sort of thing. But I feel like that is what makes us us. And I mean, I'm not even a manifesting generator in human design. I'm a generator. And so usually you see all of these different like interests and things like that with Manny Gens, but I just don't ever want to feel trapped. I feel like that's one of my biggest things is like, well, I want the freedom to be able to do whatever the hell I decide I want to do. That's why when like for my website, it's just reneebowen.com. It's not Renee Bowen photography and you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, well, what if I decide one day I want to go into something completely different? I want that to come with me. And I just feel like, especially as women and all the different phases that we go through too, like we're constantly reinventing ourselves and we should feel free to do that. And I that's one of the things that I want to do. That's what I like to do, in my coaching and just even in my friendships. Like I want people to feel free enough to explore that because we are not just one thing.
No, we are definitely not. I think it just became more accepted, more, normalized to be more than one thing at once. I think we've always been out there. We were just hiding behind this one thing, right? That was the most acceptable thing of all the things that we did. And we used to be shamed for doing all the things, you know? I used to hear from people, that, "Why don't you just choose one thing?" "There's no way you can do more than one thing well." And I think a lot of times it's just other people projecting their own limitations onto you, right? They're not saying it because they don't want you to win or they don't want you to be successful. They're just literally verbalizing that they would not be able to do it. That's just not something that they have the capacity to do it. But some of us do. Some of us are fine with our brain working on more than one thing and being passionate about more than one thing and being able to divide our time and effort. And, I've gone back and forth between keeping things separate, keeping things together. And I think it works differently for different reasons. But the main thing for you to remember if you are somebody who, like us, loves more than one thing is it is okay to be like that. And there is sustainability into this world as well. Like you can be successful. Renee and I are very successful, all the things that we do. So you can do it as well. So wanted you to know that.
I'm glad that you brought that up though, because I do hear that a lot from people. People still feel shamed or guilt or whatever about it, but at the end of the day, if it lights you up, that's really what matters. Like, I mean, people probably always ask you this too, but people have always asked me like, how do you do all of this? Like, how do you do everything you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I just do. Like, I'm not doing it out of stress or pressure or like heaviness, right? That's kind of your answer. If you're doing something and there's heaviness and there's like, that's a sign to me that you're not really, living in your alignment, let's say. But for me, if it's lighting me up and I have the energy and the capacity to do it, I'm going to follow it because I really believe that following those little breadcrumbs of because you don't know sometimes like, oh, maybe this hobby that you love can lead to a career if you want it to, but maybe it's just for fun. Okay, well, you won't know that until you follow the little breadcrumbs of one little step at a time and just kind of see where it goes.
Yeah. Explore. Be curious. Be curious.
Exactly.
Was there a specific moment that you realized, like, "Oh, this isn't just about taking photos or making money," that there was, like, an identity or unconscious mind kind of, like, wrapped into the back end of everything? Was there, like, a specific moment that clicked for you?
Meaning like for my clients or for me?
Maybe both. Tell us both if you.
Yeah, because like, at first, I was like, "Oh, yeah," like, with my clients, I can see a definite transformation, right? And then, yeah, it's both for sure. So, on the client side, I think that, what I do, especially with my teenage clients, and why I love still doing it to this day, and it's not boring for me, is because it isn't just about pictures. It's not just about anybody can take pictures, right? Especially nowadays. My clients don't come to me for that. Yeah, they're drawn to my work. They like the images that I create, and that's usually what they first find of me online or whatever. But they come for the experience. And it's not just about, delivering some pictures and then sending them on their way. I wanted to create a business that was going to be higher touch, more relationship based and help them see themselves the way we see them. Because especially our young female clients, right? Like and especially now, like when I started this business, I was working with millennials. Okay, I'm now it's Gen Z and we're about to be in Gen Alpha. So I have seen the gamut of the generations, and I love that stuff. I geek out on that because that's like the psychology piece of my brain, but I love that generational marketing. Yeah, my millennial clients, okay, it was the beginning of social media. It was fun. It was awesome. Everybody was posting. Everybody loved it. It was fresh, new, and different. Now, it's not like that at all. Like our teenage clients very rarely post. If they show up at all, it's going to be a repost. They don't want to show too much of themselves. It's like humble bragging. It's like they don't want to be too showy. And there's a lot of like noise in their world telling them that they have to look perfect and they live with a selfie camera in front of their face. This is a very different thing. And so part of what I do is like a lot of times these girls haven't ever really had any kind of experience like this in front of someone else's camera, which as you know is so vulnerable. Like I don't like to be in front of anybody else's camera either. I like to be in control. But these girls, it's like I love sitting in that sales session, showing them the images, and they are like, yeah, there's gonna be a few, those tight ones that the moms love, right? With the smiley. They usually don't love those. But because they just aren't used to seeing their face in that way close up, even though it's a gorgeous photo and the mom is so happy. And our job as a senior photographer is to make both of them happy, by the way. But I love seeing them see themselves in a different way and then seeing how that translates into more confidence, just a different perspective. And I love when they're like, "Yes, I love all these images. I want all of these." It lights something up inside of me, I'm telling you. Like it's so fun to see something kind of shift in there for them. And also obviously giving them something that they love. And then as far as I think like the unconscious shift on the back end side of it for me, I mean, I had to do a lot of unraveling when I decided to run this business because I quickly realized as soon as I just, saw, okay, I have to move out of a shoot and burn thing because I started just like everybody else, and not knowing what I was doing. I don't have a business degree. I don't have a business background. I had no idea what I was doing. I had to figure all that out by myself in the early days of the internet, which was not easy to do. And once I realized, okay, if I need a sustainable business, it's actually profitable, and I have to charge this much for these things, how am I going to do that? Because I had so much like money stuff that I didn't even know was there. I didn't know I had worth issues or any of that stuff until I started having to price my work appropriately and stand in confident saying, this is how much it costs. And man, it was triggering as hell. So there was a lot of unconscious, reprogramming and deep work that I had to dig into. First of all, to figure out where that came from and decide how I was going to move through it.
It's a lot that we don't realize. It's either keeping us from, doing certain things or kind of directing how we act on our, how we show up and the decisions that we make and all that. This episode is sponsored by the CEO Method, my proven system to help founders let go without things falling apart. Inside, you'll nail what to delegate, set a clear definition of done, and run a weekly rhythm that frees your calendar while keeping standards high. If you want a 3-day CEO schedule and a team that moves without handholding, go to accidentalceo.co/delegate-course. That's accidentalceo.co/delegate-course. So most of our listeners are that like high capacity person, like a lot of like you and me, and they carry a lot. So, they build this business that depending on them carrying a lot, carrying everything. When you look at that as a pattern and you tap into your trauma informed coaching, what do you see there? Is there some kind of background thing that shows up as being this high capacity overachiever person?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that there's definitely some generalizations, I guess, that you can make from it. A lot of us tend to be either eldest daughters or some sort of like took on some sort of role in our family at a young age where we had to just take care of stuff, right? Whether that could look like a lot of different ways, and everybody's got their own story, but we sort of interpret it as, well, if I don't do it, it ain't gonna get done. That's like a very insidious sort of programming in there. Again, like most of this stuff comes from our childhood in some way because like up until the age of 7, we are in that like, theta brain state. Yes, we're in magic, right? We're like a blank slate kind of like just soaking in information. And that's our brain is designed to do that. It's a survival thing, right? So we're supposed to like just suck in the information around us so that we can learn from it. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff gets in there that's not so great. And it doesn't have to be like a major trauma, but it could be. It could be a small little t, it could be something that wasn't intentionally done to you, but your little brain interpreted it that way because your unconscious mind, its only job is to keep you safe and alive. That's it. So anything that it determines as unsafe, whether it's like starting a new business, raising your prices, whatever, we're going to interpret that, as unsafe. And so a lot of that has to do with the hypervigilance is what you're talking about, right? Is how it comes out later in life is because of these things that we had to deal with to keep us safe and alive as kids or teenagers or whatever it might be. And so then we kind of like start running a business and say we have a family and then we're the head of house, we tend to take on all of this stuff. No one intrinsically told us we had to do that, but something in our unconscious mind is telling us that if we don't do that, everything is going to fall apart and everybody's going to die. That's like really what at the heart of it. It's okay to be a doer, I think, like I said, if you love what you do, but you got to check in with yourself and make sure it's coming from a very aligned place and not a survival mechanism. And that's where a lot of people are working from is survival. So that's where that nervous system work comes in, somatic work, whatever. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But I always tell people there's no prize at the end of this. Like none of us are getting out alive, first of all. And there's no prize at the end of your life for like doing the most. And yet we wear this, so many people, as like a badge of honor. And it's not. It's very rooted in codependency and some other stuff. And then once you get into your 40s and 50s, and you maybe have been able to like push that stuff away for a while because you had the hormone support to do so, all of a sudden you can't do that anymore and you want to kill everyone. And you're like, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. I've lost my identity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sure you see that a lot too.
Yeah, since you and I are 25, we don't know what that actually means, but we've both studied and understand it.
Exactly.
I mean, we definitely see that a lot working with clients. And I think one of the things I wanted to also touch upon is, this nervous system regulation is such a buzz phrase right now. So you hear that a lot. You and I talk about it a lot. So can you help me connect the dots for people between nervous system regulation and business decisions? How does an unregulated nervous system show up in things like maybe over delivering or discounting or not hiring support when you're like drowning behind the scenes? What does that look like on a day-to-day basis so people can maybe do a little bit of self-reflection and be like, oh, yeah, that is definitely me and I need to get help for that.
Yeah. No, I always say that your business is just a reflection of how you feel at the end of the day, especially like most of us are, solopreneurs. Yes, we probably have support. Hopefully you do, but you're like the face of the business and you started this. And so most of us have lives outside of our business. And I mean, if we're not taking care of this of ourselves, it's going to show up. It's going to trickle down. And like I said, especially when you start losing hormones, like you don't have the filter anymore that you once did. And so a dysregulated nervous system basically means like, you can't access any sort of like knowledge, wisdom, that perspective when everything is this close, right? Like when you are in fight or flight, everything seems so close to you. And so becoming that neutral observer, that's what nervous system support and like regulation really looks like is it's not about like being in a zen state all the time. Like that's not really feasible for most people, right? But if you can at least get to create some space and get to a neutral place where you can kind of look at things and go, that's interesting, and not judging, right? Not beating yourself up, not listening to that inner saboteur shaming you constantly because that's not really your intuition. That's your programming. And get to a place where you're able to just go, oh, that's interesting. I wonder why, getting curious. I wonder why I'm doing that. I wonder where that comes from. And that's at that first step of like, then making changes to it. Okay. Because unless we all, it's a buzzword, like you said, like nervous system regulation, self care, all of that buzzwords. But there's a reason why. It's because you can't like bring an amazing experience to your clients and you can't be like a good parent or partner or anything if you are not literally living in a state of fight, flight, or freeze all the time. And unfortunately, I think a lot of women, especially, are doing this unconsciously. You don't even know that you're living sort of hypnotically until you start to like get that perspective. And so it can be really scary. A lot of people are like, I just don't, I don't have time for that, and which I get. But that is like the best thing you can do for yourself. That's like the best gift that you can give yourself because, yeah, everything, it'll just trickle down to everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. stopping to reflect and be curious and be be kind to yourself, like, not be judgmental. I teach my kids to think about, like, would you say that to we have a cute little neighbor that is, like, 4 years old, and she's just the sweetest girl, she's the cutest, and you, like, will never do anything mean to her or say anything mean to her. So I taught them to think, like, "Would I say that to so and so?" And you're like, "No, I would never say that to her." I was like, "Then why are you saying that about yourself? Like, you deserve the same kindness and, being able to look at things without judging and really we have such a hard time reading the label from the inside of the bottle, right? Which is why people like you and I exist, so we can help people work through these things and kind of learn how to self-regulate a little bit more so they can separate their self-worth and everything personal from their business and be able to make more clear business decisions that are not connected with all this emotional stuff that we have to be working on all the time. And you can't completely separate things because we are humans, right? It's things are connected, but if we learn how to spot it, that helps a ton. Like that really helps you be able to make better decisions and have a little bit more clarity. So a lot of my clients feel like they have to suffer or grind to justify what they charge. You've been there. You mentioned earlier, I've been there too. How do you start losing some of this like belief without pushing them into that fake like I'm a money magnet vibe that your body just doesn't really buy it? Because I think there's a difference between understanding what that behavior is coming from and start working on it versus trying to buy into this whole new concept that where you just haven't taken the time to address everything else.
And everybody has their own money story, right? And, as humans, we tend to tie anything having to do with money with worth, like our actual worthiness. It's like an unconscious thing. And so that's why I believe it is so triggering for people. It was definitely triggering for me. Like I said, I didn't really even know I had that going on. I was excited about starting my business. I was excited about, building something new and different in this area, and then as soon as I started having to justify my prices or whatever, it got real sticky, right? Because we are programmed each and of our own selves, like as kids, like with our own family systems, but we're also programmed like universally as well. That used car salesman stuff, right? We're told that sales in general is gross. Like a lot of us were raised that way. I mean, I definitely did not come from money. And I heard multiple times money does not grow in trees and you have to work really hard to make it. And that's what got in there. That's what got stuck in my, unconscious mind. And for a lot of us that is the story. I don't think that yeah, and you're right. Like we're it's very hard to go from there to like I'm a money magnet and everything just comes to me. And while I definitely believe in the power of the mind and the power of, we can call it manifestation, but really it is neuroscience. It's like and quantum physics. All of that. I believe in all of that stuff. That's a big gap. That's a really big gap, right? Like you've got to close the gap. And so it is about taking each step at a time. And I really believe it looks different. Like it's not a blanket thing, right? What works for somebody may or may not work for someone else, but it is about getting curious what your particular triggers are, because inside those triggers is the answer. It's not going to be comfortable looking into that. Like, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. It's just not. To uncover that and dig into like my stuff all came from because my dad didn't want to pay child support. Like legitimately was like, I'm done with you. So like I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to like face that. But when I did, I was like, oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense logically why I would have a hard time, and then also my other money stories of like the money doesn't grow in trees and stuff. And so that whole idea though specifically about having to work hard to earn it, that's something that we need to like address in general now, because and I know you do a lot with like again like a lot of the delegation and like handing off. But also, I'm hearing a lot of people now with all the AI tools that we have and how fast we are now. Because, like, look, I was always pretty fast at culling and editing. That was like my thing. Now I'm like ridiculously fast. You think I'm charging any less for that? Absolutely not. People are going to pay for speed. People are going to pay for efficiency. They don't need to know what you're using for all this. All they care about is that you're the expert and you're delivering an exceptional product quickly. They'll pay more for that, actually. So that whole line of thinking that people are starting, no. No, 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 no. We have to nip that in the bud.
I mean, convenience is definitely something to charge for. And just because things evolve on your end and it makes your life easier doesn't mean you have to lower your price. That one thing does not connect to another. So if there's somebody out there listening and they are thinking, oh crap, she's describing me, she sees me, what is maybe the first step that we can tell them to take after this episode before they even change a price or hire somebody to help them? Is there something that they can do to help them?
I mean, honestly, I feel like and this is we're recording this at the end of the year. This is a really great time to do like a reflection, right? You got to audit your stuff, right? I mean, that's like the business and strategy side and it's the side that not a lot of people love, but you have to also do it for you, for your unconscious mind, for your growth, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, look back and see what's worked, what's actually working, in your business and your life. Because again, your business is going to be a reflection of your life. So if you are like trying to build an amazing business, but you are literally internally not okay, that needs to be addressed. And so trying to get to this neutral observer place. Now, for a lot of people, they can do that with meditation or long walks or getting in nature. Like it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Connect with yourself. I always tell people, like, put your hand on your heart, take a few deep breaths, and connect with your heart center because that's really the true you. We live up here in our heads, but we're a whole being. We are all connected. And so all you have to do sometimes is just tune in. And if it seems like it's too charged up, like if it's bringing up some stuff from your childhood that feels heavy or scary, obviously you would want to get some support in the form of therapy or things like that. But something that you can do to help kind of bridge that gap on your own as well is to take some of the emotional charge away from it and try and look at it maybe through imagine that you're looking at this through a security camera, black and white, no sound. Like take some of the input away from it. Because again, like if we have a lot of like traumatic things in our past or things that really had a big impact on us, they're going to be big, they're going to be bright, they're going to be loud. Let's take some of that away and see if you can get a little bit different perspective. And one of the things that I do is it's called timeline therapy and it's kind of a form of hypnosis, but it basically assists people in doing that where you can kind of rise above yourself and like look at yourself as this neutral observer so that you can access these parts without it being so painful and you can move through it pretty quickly in that way. So you can do some of that on your own, like I said, for some people they love meditation. For some people they can't do that in that way. And so go put your feet in grass, connect with nature, do something that lights you up. I don't care if it's like a hobby that you let go 20 years ago, but you used to love to do it. Maybe pick that up again and see where that takes you. Get curious about who you really are and get connected to yourself again. Because again, like we tend to just sort of like live on autopilot, and that's that cycle you want to break.
Absolutely. That's a lot of, I feel like where most of us live, especially when you have so much going on and you are trying to grow a business and you're trying to tend to your family and you have all these things that are coming up and kind of becoming roadblocks for you as you're working, as you're trying to walk along and grow everything. So very, very important to just take some time to reconnect, reassess. It's okay to just be quiet for a while and again, be curious and be looking at things. And you don't have to always be working on the next thing. I think that's what people forget all the time. Somebody asked me the other day, what is it that you're working on? What is coming up next? And I'm like, it's good right now. Like I don't have to add anything else to my plate. I'm just gonna continue to be as good as I can with what I'm offering, what I'm doing. But there doesn't have to always be the next thing for you to work on. But talking about that, here's what I want to know for you. And we'll see if this was hard for me to answer. Somebody asked me that the other day. 50 years from now, when you and I are only 75, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? What is it that you want to be remembered by? Or like when people talk about Renee Bowen, like, what do you want it to be connected to your name?
Yeah, that's a really good one, and I think a lot just kinda came flooding into me, but honestly, I think at the end of the day, I feel like I just wanna help people feel seen, like, really seen, whether that is in front of my camera or in a coaching container. I guess my legacy, is that I want people to have felt seen and truly valued for who they are unapologetically. That's kind of my whole thing at the end of the day.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Tell people where to find you if they want to work with you and learn more about what you offer.
Yeah, I'm just reneebowen.com and Renee Bowen pretty much everywhere-ish. So I'm active on Instagram and TikTok and not as much on LinkedIn, but I'm there. I mean, I'm there, I'm pretty much everywhere, but I'm most active probably on Instagram. And I'm always in my DMs, so I'm happy to chat. If somebody wants to reach out and say hello, yeah, come on by.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Renee. This was super fun to have a conversation and kind of dig a little bit behind the scenes of, what drives our behavior as business owners and as entrepreneurs and how we can start being a little bit more mindful about all that stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you. Oh, and yes, and I talk a lot about that kind of stuff too on my podcast, Tried and True with a dash of woo. So you've been a guest on my podcast, and yeah, you guys can come over and see because I don't like to box myself in there either. I like to talk about like whatever the heck I feel like talking about. So it tends to be a little bit of everything. So thank you so much for having me here.
Beautiful. Go check out Renee's podcast. Also, hit her up on Instagram and let's keep on growing together. All right. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Accidental CEO podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us in the world where creativity and business strategy collide. I am Nata Salvatori, thrilled to have shared this time with you. Remember, every episode is a step closer to mastering the art of being an accidental CEO. So don't miss out. Hit subscribe, drop us a sweet review, and spread the word to your creative tribe. Your next big breakthrough could be just one episode away. Join us next time for more insights, laughs, and actionable tips. Keep pushing boundaries, dreaming big, and embracing the beautiful chaos of entrepreneurship. Here's to make magic happen in your business and beyond.